This is the topic of my presentation, when it's time to stop patching the Frankenstein and rewrite everything from scratch. And when I showed my presentation to my teammates, they already spotted a mistake on the first slide. Can you see it? Exactly, yes. So here is the correction, and let's move on to the next slide. Here is the plan for today. I'm going to introduce myself in a bit and talk about the motivation, why I decided to choose this topic and why, and what I did with it. I will try to tell the story how I experienced the rewriting from scratch, a horrible application which made mine and my teammates' lives better. And so I will try then to suggest the possible solution for similar cases. Okay, so my name is Andrii Feshchenko. I work in Orsted for 2 years already. And Orsted, if I see a lot of people from Orsted actually. But for those who don't know, it's like a pretty big, it's a global leader in offshore wind power. So we build and operate the wind turbines. And originally I'm from Ukraine, but for the last 5 years I live in Poland, another beautiful country. So why this topic? Oftentimes I hear such calls that it's very bad, but it works. There is a horrible workaround. It's a very legacy, but we have to stick to it because the cost of updating it is high, or we don't know, or we don't have time. Let's improve it later, and a lot of stuff like that. Have you ever seen anything similar in your projects?
It's messed up for 5 years.
Exactly. So and I thought I'm not the only one. I will quickly introduce you to the project I work with. This is I'm a data engineer, and this is a classical ETL project where we have extraction from different data sources to data. We transform it, we prepare a structure, and save to the data warehouse. And it works, it's good, but the problem is it's all packed into one single application. It's a huge monolith, which was developed more than 5 years ago. It was initially it had its own requirements for which for different 10 data types it worked fine. But then with time the requirements went up, it grew, and it needed a lot of new things to be built on top. That's why a lot of perils appeared, a lot of anti-patterns appeared, and this is what we have. It runs at once, so for a small thing, for a small project, it is predictable. It was great, but now it's a horrible thing that. But it became a horrible thing that it was hard to debug and to test by parts, and it was impossible to test by parts. But yeah. So the first, I tried to structure all the bad anti-patterns I could find, and so the code fragility is one of them. So with a lot of patches, the code becomes fragile. You cannot touch one thing and improve it without breaking another things, and it actually stops from development. I think it's more like wide one. Next is dependency. How it's related? It's about the environment. It's about the dependencies, about the libraries in Python. You probably know, you probably seen it when it really goes into circles, when you update something for a newer version, and it links to other things that you never wanted to touch, but here they are. And it prevents also from great developer experience. And another thing I wanted to point out is willing to work and miss opportunities. It's about the people and how you feel during your work. So the first question, the questions before the talks that I hear about like the complaining about the projects, it's about this, that people used to complain, people just complain, people don't like what they're doing, and it's very bad. You're not motivated, it's less pleasant to work. And also you miss opportunity. I'm hearing this. And also it is a missed opportunities because because you don't use the newer solutions, you don't utilize the newest libraries and technologies that you could have. Yeah.
Just one more touch. Fixing on production.
Thank you. Okay. But it's successful fix. So thanks. So okay. So the next slide, I pointed out the screenshot from production, by the way, and we had this my favorite is to do this doesn't work. Yeah. You can guess how old is this one, but don't. Okay, so I structured it. So I took everything I could, and I identified that there are actually three categories and 3 points of views on the same problem. Is the first one is the business-related issue, that it doesn't fit the requirement, or it's fits worse. The next three are technical perspective, is like if you look into your code from technical view. And the last one is human factor, so human interaction, is how developers feel, and it can cause, it covers some even hiring processes. And so how to solve the issues all at once? This is the new roadmap. List all the pain points of the project, develop a new architecture, align the costs, agree with stakeholders that we're gonna get budget, support on solution, and develop the new one in parallel. And finally, when it's done, replace the legacy code with the newer solution. How do you like it?
It's perfect.
Yeah.
Very big project.
More realistic.
Exactly. But you know what? Initially we tried this one, and here what I learned. So first of all, it's the first 3 points are fine. You like gather, you ambitious, you talk about things you want to do, and then on the 4th point, where we had to support everything in parallel, that's where we stopped. Because we appeared in the situation where we had to compete our new features, like our new development was competing with production issues, and it just lost. So we slowly started like prioritizing other stuff because it's urgent, and we changed the requirements a few times, and we just gave up. Because we didn't do anything for a while, so we decided that we need another approach to this one. So yeah, here it's just when you have more functionalities than expected, of course it's gonna raise in time, and you may never reach the point where you replace the new thing with the old one. So is at the first place, is it always necessary to replace the project, or you can have some trade-off and stick to it, so, like or fix it, like with microphone. So it's definitely not recommended for when you do it just for sake of doing it, because on our first approach, only motivation is not enough, because you always, like in the companies, if you don't work alone, but if it's a company, if it's money involved, it's just hard to prioritize things that you don't have the business value right away. So it's really hard. Then lack of trust. It means that if you are not the one who built the old solution, and very often it is the case, then and you don't really know how does it work, it's not always true that you will do better, however you might think that is the case. So that's actually, yeah, so lack of trust is meaning, I meant that people used to think that they could do better than other people did before. It's not always the case. And delaying fixing issues, yeah, it's about technical debt. That if it's only issue, you just can fix it, and it could lead to the desired solution. And you should be able to make a time for transition period. So the system should be either stopped or kind of stabilized. So this is the suggestion. So here so when I failed the first time, I just tried to look into the Medium articles, what experienced developers think about this problem. And I collected this list of, because I really like the idea. So there is a list of questions you can ask yourself if it's really time, and if it's already the point where you have to rewrite it from scratch. And here, if you look at the questions, you can try to evaluate your project to these ones, and if you gather 5 yeses, it's definitely time to rewrite it from scratch. So here it is.
How do you define problematic source?
Yeah, it's subjective. Like so what we did, we just gathered with the team, and we had few eyes looking into this, like voting independently, and it's subjective, but it really helps, because part of the problems are human related, so subjective ones, and I think it can be workable. So, and after those, I continued searching the Medium articles, and this kind of issues already resolved a lot of times. So senior developers, some experienced developers suggested me to use iterative approach, and we implemented it in our team. So first is to isolate the smallest feature possible that has the best added value, and so instead of taking into consideration the big scope of everything that you don't like, you can take the smallest one and target only this one, and and develop it basically. Very important after that, when you test it, when you try to integrate it to your system, it's important, of course, to monitor, to test it, and then to replace it and never go back to the old solution, because this way you have the live feedback, and you see and you see much more thing, and you for sure make it properly. So and of course it's it leads to better quality in general. So, and after that came back to the first step and iterated until you feel like you're good. So, yeah. So let me show the use case, the application that I showed you earlier. So this is how it used to look. This is the diagram. So on every step there was some function. It's a CLI application. We run on Kubernetes as a Docker, and on every step it does something, and you can run it only, and you can run dataset or from start to the end without proper splitting. So it should follow the process. Whatever the requirements are, it like you configure the database with the configuration stuff, and you see at the icon, yeah, it's pretty old one. And we identified quickly, it was a simple one, that the first thing we replace this configuration database. And we decided to make it API, so we redesigned it from on this part of application, and updated our solution to this one. And I felt already a lot of good things about this. So when we did all this the first iteration, we moved to the next one. We split it into preprocessing service and left the remaining stuff as it was. So the preprocessing service was another API application which was taking and like running the first parts, which were not related to transformation. We may call it an extract part of ETL. Then we added validation. We hadn't it in one place. We moved everything there, and so we extracted it out, and then left the transformation service, which we made as a service, and made them like different. So something could be omitted completely as a chunk. Something could be added. So there were like a lot of options. It gave us a lot of flexibility. And finally, almost all code was replaced completely. And when I did this presentation, I found out that maybe it's not already a Frankenstein. However, we changed all the parts. It's rather the Theseus ship. So I like comparisons. So this is an account success because it's much better now. So this is mainly the story I had about our project, and I wanted to conclude saying that sometimes rewriting from scratch is a really good idea. It's not always guaranteed that you can do better, but rather than complete rewrite from the very beginning, you can do incremental shifts. Yep. Any questions?
Yes, you mentioned extracting features into sub-modules. Did you mean microservices or just organizing monoliths into manageable components?
No, it's microservices, so it's separate applications, completely separated. So they were each of that point was like producing files, which were like they were communicating via data warehouse, more or less, or other place.
That's ETL we are talking about, right?
Yeah, you can. It's ELT already, but yeah. Okay.
Did you consider the exchange information using some ATL rubber files, garbage files?
Information?
Between how microservices exchange information? By persistence, you mean? The files, or yes?
Okay, so yeah, we used. So there are a few things we use for it. It's like we host it on Databricks, so we use some Databricks configurations on that one, and also on Kubernetes jobs. So it's I said sorry, Kubernetes and Databricks. So we use the configurations there to schedule the processes there for such things. But yeah.
I asked inside, but I can ask out loud. So, yeah, what are the two worst outcomes, findings, after spending this time writing your application from scratch?
For the first time, right?
Yeah.
So the worst was that I did a lot of development, and it was never used. So the worst was I mean, yes. So the fact that we had to throw some stuff, but yeah, of course, yeah, we can call it experience. But yeah, that I think. Apart from that, it was pretty bad to debug the same thing. So like making something new was already good. Another question, what methods do you use not to end up in the same situation in 5 years? We used microservice architecture, which is much more flexible, so right now we can replace any part and it would be much quicker, it would be just another iteration. Yeah, it's less related, but yeah, who knows, maybe some other issues would appear. But not the same ones that we already had.
And maybe another one. So, were there any design patterns you used and you didn't see in the original code?
Yeah, we introduced some new design patterns. We used onion structure, so we separated the code, the actual code from execution part, because before it had no clear boundaries, and we introduced this better project structure organization. I think it's about it. Yeah. So yeah. If that's it, please reach out to me on LinkedIn if you want to contact me, and I would like to end on this.